Scott is fascinated by the concept of culture. Given that he's moved 43 times in his life, that's a good thing, because apparently he is trying to live in all the culture. So give it up for Scott!
So this is me, January 9th, 2019, exactly 41 days after my wife's job transferred us from Orlando, Florida to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And this was not in the brochure. Now, we had freezers in Florida, we just didn't live in them. At the time we moved outside of work, I hadn't worn pants in 21 years. Now my dogs wore sweaters and I looked like Ralphie from A Christmas Story. It's not like this was our first rodeo. We've been chasing each other around the country for 20 years. But this time was different. And it wasn't just the weather. Every time I heard, "Why don't you have kids?" "What do you mean you don't go to church? You're following her around the country?" Fort Wayne got just a little bit colder. And then to top it off, the things I love most, softball, baseball, don't happen in Fort Wayne in the winter. I realized I didn't fit. I was in a world where I was lost. Have you ever been lost? Every group, every organization, every society has a culture. This way of explaining how the world really works. But not every culture is built equally. Some cultures bind us together and other cultures push us apart. And while we may never all be able to solve everything, we can always solve something. It's been more than 30 years since I started studying culture, and I have found there were 3 things that breathe life into every culture. The stories you tell, the artifacts you show, and the rituals you hold. Let me say that again. The stories you tell, the artifacts you show, the rituals you hold. If you want to change a culture and not have this, tell different stories, show different artifacts, hold different rituals. Start with the stories that elicit the emotional response that you want from someone. Don't just tell someone why you are who you are. Tell them why it matters. Tell them how you can help. Do you think that every story that this man told about Apple was accidental? He wanted a culture of disruption, of innovation, of aspiration. He did not want a culture of the status quo. He wanted a culture of rebellion. So he's told stories of being rebellious. Maybe it's time for you to tell the story of when you were voluntold. You know, when somebody else volunteers you to do something because they know it needs done and have no intention of doing it themselves. And then tell how that changed you and those kids. And then find the artifacts that bring life and tactile feelings to that culture. There's a reason why when you finish at Disney, you get dumped into a gift shop. It's not by accident. They want you to take home an artifact to remind you of the experience. Give someone a trophy, celebrate their successes, maybe even name a day after them in a community, but whatever you do, create an artifact that is tangible and meaningful to the person. And then create the rituals that matter, those social gatherings that help galvanize a community, that help bring people together, that help people get immersed into a society. Every year in Fort Wayne, Vera Bradley rents out the convention center to hold the annual sale. It is the largest tourist attraction in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is equal parts scary and wonderful. But they don't do it just to sell bags. They do it to bring their fans together, to give them an opportunity to experience the culture together, to become assimilated, to become immersed in what it means to be part of that culture. And then once you do all those things, listen. Listen not to argue, not to speak, but listen to learn. Because nothing has ever been changed by arguing with the ocean. sometimes we need to hear before we can speak. If you live in a culture where you do not think that it fits, or if you're in a culture that you've outgrown, by all means do something about it. Tell a different story. Find a different artifact. Hold a different ritual. I miss these people in Florida. But I am hopeful that the community I'm trying to build in Fort Wayne will become the culture that I want it to be. I'm doing that one story at a time, one artifact at a time, one ritual at a time. Where will you start?